what in the 20s is going
in the
on?
20s,
Think about
yes.
the 20s.
What
baby.
Plenty.
What in the 20s is
I
going
am
on?
here for my 20s, baby.
This is the 20s.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Zamamkize, and this is What's in the 20s, a podcast where you listen to me grow through its baby. On today's episode, we're going to be speaking about the art of being. This is something that I've had to practice this last month. So I know you probably don't feel it on your end because there's been like an episode released like every week, but I haven't been in studio for about over a month now, you know? And I guess it was intentional, you know, it was basically a year since my mom passed away. So I went back home and all of that. And I just wanted to take that time to just kind of sit, right? To just kind of feel what I'm feeling, to not feel pressured to have to show up for something or do anything or whatever it is. And so it's weird because I think I've constantly come on here and opened up about the fact that I'm someone who loves like working towards something, loves achievements, loves succeeding and all of that kind of stuff. I love being driven and motivated and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, you know? And so sometimes it can get really difficult and overwhelming when you are brought into a season of like stillness, right? Into a season of slowness and a season of ease and all of that kind of stuff. It can feel really uncomfortable. It can feel very agitating, honestly speaking. And I think that as much as I was so intentional about wanting my like little month break to be just, you know, for that, it made me think about a lot, like how it's so easy to burn out, you know. I've consistently spoken about like how I go through cycles of like burnout because like I push everything out in the beginning and all of that. I give my best and all of the rest. And then I'm just like, I'm done, you know. And I think that sometimes it's not even towards work, right? Sometimes it could really be towards like the self-help kind of industry, right? Wanting to make sure you go to gym or whatever, that you get your 10,000 steps, that you drink water, that you journal, that you this, that you that, you know, like this kind of idea of the way that we glamorize health and wealth and fitness and all the rest and stuff, right? I think that can also lead to burnout. It's like that self-optimization kind of chase, right? To always make the best out of every day, to make the best out of every hour, to make the best out of ourselves, our energy, our skills, our mind, our time, you know? And I think very often why we sit with that kind of thing is that because the unknown is uncomfortable, right? I love to always know what's coming. That's why I plan so much and all the rest. And I think when I don't know, when I'm just sitting with no obligation, sitting with nothing to like do, I think that makes people very frustrated, right? Like, but then what's going to happen, right? I think it's that feeling of like, what are we putting our trust in, our hope in? Like, you know, we can't just let things, you know, give things to chance and stuff like that, right? It feels very unknown to not understand our feelings, you know, because we feel like we need to kind of figure out what is it that I'm feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? Where is it coming from? What is it triggering in me? This and this and this, you know, like I feel like we keep trying to teach and preach that like, you know, you need to look inwards, you need a this and that. And I think like that constant process of like self-reflection, all of that can be exhausting. It's emotionally taxing sometimes to constantly engage with those kind of, I guess, feelings, you know, and trying to uncover and trying to find the meaning to it and trying to figure out why this is happening, right? And I think that we go into this desire for problem solving. That's our thing, right? We want to find solutions to everything. We want to know that if this is what's going on, this is the reason why. This is how I can fix it. This is how we can build it. This is how we can change it, shape it, whatever it is. It's like we constantly keep feeling, I mean, I have that thing, you know, I hate sitting and just like letting things be. I hate that. I hate the whole thing of like, it just is, you know, because I'm just like, no, you know, what can we do about it and stuff like that. I think sometimes we even speak about it when you are venting to a friend or a partner or a loved one, etc. And you know, sometimes it can be so disheartening when they respond to you with advice, when they respond to you with solutions, because like sometimes you just feel like that's not what you need right now. You know, you want, because I think it takes away from the experience of you feeling what it is that you want to feel, because now they've already offered a solution to it. So now it's like you have to just, dissolve what you're feeling because, the problem is solved. And sometimes it can feel very, very frustrating. And I remember my friend asking me, but Summer, why do you want to sit in this feeling? I don't understand. Like, why do you want, I guess, a reason to be upset, if we can just fix it, if we can just, all of that. But it's like, well, because my feelings are valid, right? And that's the thing. I think sometimes, like, even when you argue or whatever it is, sometimes you want that space to feel angry. You want that space to feel disappointed and stuff. And instead of just thinking of it as a negative, it's just, this is what you're experiencing. And you want to have the opportunity to experience all of it instead of constantly solving the issue. I think there's a little gap that it leaves, and I think it also makes us feel like we shouldn't be allowed to feel those things, right? When we're constantly looking for solutions and stuff like that. I also think that when we're in a state of constantly looking for solutions, if we are in a scenario where we don't find a solution, I think it can be crippling and debilitating for some people, because it's like, oh, why can't I solve this? You get a feeling of being stuck and frustrated and stuff, and you start to think it's your fault. You start to feel inadequate. You start to feel like there's something wrong with you, where it really could have just been that the odds were stacked against you, where the cards that you have, just weren't the best ones. And sometimes it becomes really difficult to reason with that and accept that as truth, right? Because we're just like, we have to figure this out. And it's so hard, it's so hard because we're constantly looking for like a meaning to life, a meaning to the things that we're doing. And I think that a lot of it comes with the idea that there is going to be peace once you have the answers, that you will only be able to experience a calmness, a sense of understanding and all the rest, if you were to have all the answers now. I think about like even in high school, when we are about to write a test, the days before the exam and stuff, and you go up to the teacher and you say, tell me exactly which part of the textbook I need to study. Instead of just saying study chapters like 1 to 7, it's like, no, which ones should I leave out? What is going to be in the test? We want to know exactly what we need to prep for, instead of just trusting that, like, if I just study chapters 1 to 7, I'm going to be fine, right? We've like given ourselves so much anxiety, right? Because we also feel we feel like if we have access to the answers and stuff, there's a lot more peace there. We're better equipped for the test and stuff than to go through a whole, 7 chapters and all the rest. And that's the thing. It's like we're constantly searching for what is, our meaning to life, our journeys and stuff like that, that it becomes really difficult to just be. It becomes really difficult to understand that the human experience really is about, I heard someone say you're not a human doing, you're a human being, right? And so that is the whole idea, that you're meant to just be able to be in this experience. You're meant to be able to just be the person feeling these things that you're feeling, be the person going through the situations and scenarios you're going through, instead of constantly trying to do something, constantly trying to have your hands on something and all the rest. And I think that sometimes, because we're so like goal based, right, in terms of how we live, right? I told you, like, because I'm always planning, because I'm always jotting things down, because I always feel like I need to see progression. I need to see results. I need to see where I am, where I'm going, where I was, all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, you also just need to be. And it's like, I constantly feel like there needs to be something I'm working towards, and I know that a lot of us can feel that way, that there is a struggle with the idea of just, you don't need to be doing that right now. That there is no place that you need to be working towards right now, because where you are right now is exactly where you need to be. I know that there's a internal kind of conflict that we may sit with, because it feels like, something needs to be moving. And I get that, especially if you're a perfectionist, especially if you are a competitor and all the rest. And I think that our need for control, right, takes over. And it's a time thing also. Like, we want to feel like we're controlling our time. And I think that in this month, it's so weird, because as much as I had all this time. I felt like I didn't know what to do, what to do with it. But it's like when I know that I'm working towards something, that I've got a due date, that I've got to do this and do that, I feel like I get to manage my time and plan it and make sure that I reserve time to do this and do that. But when I don't have something to go through, it feels like, I don't have control. I think about people who go through heartbreak. I feel like it also takes control of your time, right? Because so much of your time, your mind, the space in your mind is spent thinking about the pain you're experiencing, right? Thinking about the other person, thinking about if they're with somebody else and all the rest. It's like, it feels like they consume so much of your day, so much of your hours and all the rest. And that's the thing. It's like, the feeling of like just not knowing what's going on or where you're at and stuff, it's very uncomfortable. And I think that we desire instructions, we desire formulas, we desire manuals, we desire like a step-to-step guide on how to do life, a step-to-step guide on how to exist, on how to go about, because that's what when I go back to the example of like asking the teacher, tell me exactly which parts of this textbook is going to be in the test, right? We want to be led by those kind of instructions rather than just I guess allowing our minds, to be expanded or to be open-minded, should I say, in terms of like the opportunity to receive more knowledge, right? But it's like, no, we want to just constrict everything. They were just too afraid. And I think that's the thing. All of this comes from fear, right? Fear of, for example, making a mistake. I think that we want all the answers now because we don't want to make the mistake in the partners we choose, right? So we want to know that like this partner is going to be the partner that I spend the rest of my life with, that I have children with, that is going to stay, that is going to be loyal and all of that. Like I need all that information now, right? Like if you look at the list that people have of what is a red flag now and all the rest, and the reasons people are willing to leave so early and so quickly, and what is a deal break and all of that, 2 weeks into knowing someone, like things have changed drastically, the boundaries have just become so increased. And I think it's like because we're so afraid of making the mistake of like, if I had to go find out, if I had to go explore, if I had to go do that, it's like I'd rather just I need to know, and I think that we fear wasting time. We fear that spending 3 years, 4 years or whatever getting to know this partner and all the rest, and then it doesn't work out. We feel like, oh my gosh, I've given so many of my best years to this person. I think sometimes we sit with that and we wrestle with that feeling, right? We don't want to waste time in the wrong career. I remember matric when we had to go apply for university, everybody was so stressed out. What am I going to study? What career am I going to choose? What am I actually applying for? And all the rest. That anxiety was so frustrating, and it's like we want to know what would our life look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, so that I can make the right decision today, and I think, it's so funny when, we make these jokes like, if I could go speak to my 6-year-old self, I'll tell them to start investing in property now. If I could go speak to my 4-year-old self, I'll tell them to start like having different accounts and this and this and this and whatever. But it's like, yeah, I think sometimes we don't trust that you will have the information needed at the time you need it for. And I know that's sometimes so difficult to grapple with. I always had that anxiety that I don't know enough for the things I'm trying to pursue, that I don't have enough, that I don't, but I think when I look back on things, I've always ended up making it through anyways. I think if you look back at a lot of the situations where you felt ill-equipped or felt, just out of your depth, you've somehow always found a way to get through on the other side of it. And I think that's the course of life, right? Letting life take its course is trusting that all the tools, all the knowledge, all the resources that you require to get through this circumstance will find you, will meet you at the place that you're at, rather than thinking you need to prepare 10 years before so that by the time you get there, you already know how to do it. And I know it can feel tough because when you look at, for me, for example, with my friends and stuff, we're all in different places and we're all doing different things. There are things that they're doing in their adult life that I still have no knowledge on how to do, and sometimes it would make me feel so bad about myself, right? But I also realize I don't know how to do because I've never needed to do it yet. And I need to trust that at the time when I am going to need to do it, I will learn how to do it, you know? And I think that's the thing. It's like we get so afraid because of, you know, the fact that some people in our lives are buying homes, are buying cars, are buying this and are doing that, and you don't even know the beginning of how to save, you know, on how to build a credit score and how to do that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing. It feels so. It's sometimes it can be debilitating, right? And I think it's recognizing that where you are is okay. You know, you've gotten yourself through so much. And that's the fear we sit with, is that we don't feel like we are, compared to our peers, like the right competitors, you know, in that sense, you know what I'm saying? That we are running the same race and all of that. So because we don't want to feel like we're being left behind, because we don't want to feel like we're, you know, whatever, we're constantly in the effort to keep doing. You know, we don't know how to just be. We keep having to do something and do more and learn more and like get ahead and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that very often we fear not just that we're slowing down, you know, not just the idea of ease, but the idea of stagnancy, and even worse, regression. I think the concept of just being can make us feel like we're not moving forward, can make us feel like we're not achieving anything, working towards something, all of that kind of stuff can make us feel like we are trapped, and it shouldn't do that. And I think it can even worse make us feel, like I said, like we're falling behind. That's what I mean, like regression. Make us feel like we're starting from zero. Make us feel like we're what is there left of us? And I think that's why we struggle, you know, with being, struggle with letting time pass, struggle with letting our emotions move through us, struggle with not knowing what's next, not knowing what to do next. You know, I even think about this time last year, I had no idea what I was going to do next because it felt like my world ended, you know. It felt like everything was so dark and all the rest, and I did not know how to start again. I didn't like, yeah, and I get that feeling. I think people feel like that all the time, whether you just lost your job or you just got out of a long-term relationship and all the rest. I think we can sit there and feel like, what is supposed to happen? What now? I get that so deeply and so much. And I think that's why we love to constantly feel like we're doing something, because it distracts us from the feeling of not knowing. It distracts us from the feeling of like, you know, but the problem with constantly racing towards self-optimization is that it's the quickest way to burn out, in my opinion. As I said earlier, is that when you're constantly feeling like you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to whatever, the exhaustion that kicks in is unbelievable. The fatigue, the way that your body feels so just drained and over it, you know, because everything is just, it's so taxing. I think not just the burnout, but the crash out. The number of times you'll keep finding yourself just blowing up, having a meltdown, losing your mind, all of that kind of stuff, because it's like you're chasing this idea that you want to be your best self all the time, every day. You know, you want to show up as, you know, the best and the this and the that. You know, you never want to be seen slipping and this and that. You want to keep making sure you're doing this and and that's what I'm saying. I feel like the crash outs you'll have, the burnout you'll have, you will start to feel crazy. And the thing about self-optimization that we don't really speak about is that it's never ending. And that's what makes it unfulfilling, is that you will constantly feel like there's more that you need to be doing, that there's more that you should be doing, there's more spaces that you can be taking up, there's more that you should be achieving, all of that kind of stuff. It's never enough. You'll never be satisfied, you know, because that's the whole point of self-optimization, is being your best self. And like, we'll never really reach that state of perfectionism, right? And so it's like, you're just on this hamster wheel, chasing. And I think that that's the whole point of perfectionism, right? It's like, these standards that are quite honestly unattainable, but we kind of I guess gaslight ourselves into thinking it's just because we're not enough, we're not doing enough, we're not hustling enough, we're not making enough money, we're not this and that. And so we just keep running and we keep running. And life, like I said, starts becoming unfulfilling because we don't even know what it is we're living for anymore. And I think that learning how to be present with the human experience really will help you put things into perspective. You know, learning how to just be at ease with who it is that you are, the journey it is that it took for you to be here, just have appreciation, you know, for life, right? I think that sometimes I get so caught up in wanting to achieve that I forget to just play, that I forget to just have fun, that I forget to hang out with my friends, that I forget to just enjoy, like, you know, being and feeling and stuff. It's like, you know, if you miss someone, fine, miss them. Don't feel like you need to be in a rush or a hurry and all the rest to be on the other side of this journey that you're on, you know, to be on the other side of what you're feeling and stuff like that. I think you need to allow yourself to be more curious about life, to be more kind of have this exploring kind of nature. You know, what is there out there? And I think when you're in a state of being, that's when it allows you that opportunity, right? That access to more, right? Because now you're not meeting yourself with an expectation or with a certain desire. You're not saying from this day, I want to have this, I want to achieve this, I want to feel like this. You're simply just allowing the day to pass through you. You're seeing things for what it is. You know, you're just taking part of this life experience. You know, you're recognizing that you're a small little, you know, human, a part of this huge world experience, you know, and there's so much to life than what it is you think you know. You know, there's this book that I'm reading now called Think Again, and it's essentially just challenging so much about what it is that you think and realizing that there's actually so much that we don't know, you know. So like, you know, you constantly keep thinking you know this and you know that or whatever it is, but the reality is, you know, we really know nothing about anything. And that's okay, you know, and it's fine, you know, to be wrong. It's fine to have made that mistake. It's fine to have given so many years of your life to a certain project, to a certain business, to a certain partner and all of that. You have to give yourself grace. You did the best with what you knew, you know, with what you thought you knew at least. And I think that when you start to have acceptance for all the seasons in your life, to start welcoming all the different transitions, welcoming all the different phases, all the different things that occur, I think that there's just a more appreciation for this human experience, right? And I would encourage you to welcome it, you know, and I think that's what I've been learning. Like, I've been learning so much about myself, about life, about what I thought I wanted, and it has just changed, you know. And I think, you know, forcing myself to really have a year where I slowed down my life has been the best thing I've ever done for myself, because I think that I definitely would have lost myself a long time ago. And the only reason that didn't happen was because I've now challenged myself to actually just be, you know, to just be a human who is, you know, sometimes sad. Instead of thinking I'm giving myself this many hours to be sad and now I got to get back up. I got this. I mean, like, yes, you have to get back up. But like that thing that I'm saying, sometimes meet yourself with no expectation and see what can come out of it. You know, see who it is. I'm thinking about so I've been fasting this month, and it's so interesting. Like in the beginning, I was so focused, you know, on asking God for things. I made a whole list and all of that kind of stuff. Like every day has just been like, can you do this? Can you do that? But I mean, like, so far, you know, it's been so transformative that it's honestly just changed into just wanting to seek him more, into just my desire to want to get to know him more and be in his presence more. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like so much of what you thought was so important in the beginning becomes just so, I don't want to say meaningless, but it's not as important as what you become hungry for, you know, in its place. And yeah, that's the whole point of like when you just be, you know, just allow and stuff, is that you just end up having a hunger and a thirst for something so different. And that's the beauty of it all. That's the beauty of living, is that we get to change our minds, that we get to restart, we get to just to take ourselves out of the bubble that we're in. We get to zoom out. We get to be someone observing our experiences instead of constantly being the one in it, you know. Just, yeah, I think that is so important. And that's been something I've just been learning this past month. And I hope that it's something you can take along to on your journey. As always, I'm sending my love. Goodbye.
What in the 20s is going
In the
on?
20s,
Think about
yeah.
the 20s.
The 20s,
What
baby.
happened in the
Plenty,
20s?
plenty.
What in the 20s is
I
going
am
on?
here for my 20s, baby.
This is the 20s.